I'm broadcasting. Hello and good afternoon and welcome to Men's Radio. My name is Neil Long and no Russ Kane today. So literally it's just me. My producer, Mr. E, is in the background trying to persuade him to come on and do a money saving tip. And he's been a bit camera shy at the moment. We'll see if we can wheedle him into it. And two absolutely fantastic guests coming up. So let's see your messages. Say hello. I will see them. I'll stick them on the screen and we can all interact together nicely. If I can remember how to use this thing. It's like I've got to press all these buttons at once. Like I normally do it when I'm DJing. Look, I got this for my birthday. Look, there we go. Mr. DJ. But not a record insight today. But lots of mental health insights, partly life coaching today. It's going to be our first guest. She was on the show a while ago and we said we wanted to get her back on. So we will today. And she's a powerhouse. I really, really can't wait to get her on. There we go. I'm here, says Ken Evans. He's in the background, it's my producer. And our resident horologist, RVB, Robert Van Buren. Hello to you as well, buddy. Thank you for tuning in. So let's be having you. Who else have we got? Happy to do your shout outs. Hope you had a nice weekend. I was so busy. Did a gig on Thursday, facilitated a big old awards ceremony. Friday I had a stand-up comedy gig. Yes, I do stand-up comedy. Hard to believe. Got another one tonight. Had an 80s birthday on Saturday and another comedy stroke gig on Sunday. So I'm actually more alive than I should be at the moment. I know Russ likes to say what's left of Russ Kane. What's left of Neil Long here today. But welcome to the show. So two amazing guests. I'm going to bring Esther on in just a moment. As soon as I see her in the green room, we shall get her on. And another fantastic guest at around 12:30 today. A lady with an incredible backstory. But more importantly than the tragedy which inspired her journey, and it was a tragedy, make no mistake about it, but she's worked her way back to mental health and well-being. And I think that's so important to have more things like this on this show, because we can talk about mental illness as much as we want. We can try and fix mental illness as much as we want, or we can focus on people who have made that journey, turned, I love this term, the healing corner, and then can leave an insight for others and leave a trail for other people to follow. And people like that are just worth their weight in gold. And she's such a wonderful, vibrant woman. In fact, both our guests are today. Let's say some hellos. Eve Phantom. Hello, that's a cool name, Eve Phantom. Oh, by the way, Happy Jewish New Year, by the way, if you're celebrating that. Happy Rosh Hashanah, I hope I pronounced that right. So L'chaim, and Happy New Year. Ian Foreman, you're live on Deluxe, Neil. Yes, with 70,000 people listening on Deluxe. Ian, good to have you on the show. Dave Sleet, one of our regulars. Greetings, one and all. Hope everyone is having a great start to the week. It's made even better by the fact that you're here. And David Wimble, who I understand is a driving force behind this. We've never had the pleasure of meeting in person, but I'm sure we will one day. Morning, Neil, and belated birthday greetings from last week. Good morning. Morning. So when I get a life coach on, I'm going to try and persuade her to do a bit of coaching on air. Okay. Some of us have a bit of social anxiety, and it doesn't matter how high up in our field we are. I think the number one fear is public speaking, right? It's even got a name, glossophobia. I never knew that was a thing, but fear of speaking in public, maybe I'm just weird, I love it, but fear of speaking in public, glossophobia. So we won't gloss over that. Thank you. I'm here all week. And we're going to be talking about that. And I remember I was doing one of my comedy gigs last week, and there's a headline act. His name's Nick Helm, and he's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But even he gets nervous, and he's been doing it for years. And he's pacing up and down, and then one of the colleagues said to him, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm a bit nervous." "How can you be nervous?" He says, "I get nervous before every gig." So if it's all right, and I used to hear stories about people that performed at the Comedy Store, which is like the number one venue really in the UK, or one of them anyway, so, up there with jongleurs and all the big ones. And big names would be quivering in the green room beforehand, even being sick in the sink, I heard, out of nerves. Then they go on and absolutely storm the place. So it seems to be a normal thing, but do we have to suffer? Is there a better way of developing more confidence, speaking more confidently, and dare I say, even enjoying? We will find out as we welcome our first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, go wild, go crazy. It is the one and only, the inimitable Esther Stanhope.
Yay!
What a build! That was one hell of a build-up I gave you there, Esther.
Oh my goodness! I thought I was on a little bit later in the show, so I'm so glad I tuned in what I thought was early.
I'm glad you're here too. I'm glad
Brilliant.
you're here too.
Thank you so much. And
Now we
you
had you
clearly
on
don't
before, but
suffer
we
from
had.
nerves.
Sorry,
You don't seem to suffer from nerves that much, but you probably did once.
me.
Yeah.
I remember when I did my first show on Capital Radio, which is where I met Russ Kane, and I was physically shaking like that the whole day. And as a kind of therapy, it was crude, but my friend invited me around to his back garden to play splatterbat, which involved taking the apples that had fallen off the tree and hitting them with a kind of plastic tennis racket type thing and splatting them, which didn't work at all. I was still shaking. But yes, I have done it in the past. What I found was, this is for me personally, if I get through the first 10 seconds, that's the scary bit. And then the fear kind of turns to excitement and it becomes like a good thrill, like eustress rather than distress, like being on a roller coaster. And by the time that whole ride is finished, it's like, whoa, I want to do that again. But not everyone feels that way. And welcome back, by the way, because we had you on before and we promised we'd get you back on the show. And here you are.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I know we had a bit of a busy show that day, but you know what? It was great because we all discussed
It was a real party, but we didn't get
Earth, and it was really good.
We didn't get to talk to you. We didn't get to talk to you enough because there's so many wonderful insights you can give us. So Russ said we've got to get her back on, and I said yes. And here you are. So, and I'm wondering if this is a bit cheeky because you are a confidence coach. If we could get people to pose questions, and maybe you could.
Yes. Oh my goodness! Ask me anything if you want to. If you want to ask me anything about confidence, about career confidence, because I work with a lot of people in business trying to get their confidence levels up for things like public speaking, presentations, pitching, maybe if you're an entrepreneur and you're worried about getting yourself out there, or you might just want to talk about technique, about voice, about, as you said earlier, shaking. What do I do if I shake? And as you know, I've written a book. I wrote a book. Yay!
Shameless plug alert. Woohoo! Put it on screen properly so we can see it properly.
I'm here to talk about my book, but also to talk about the club that I've just launched. It's launching this week. Called the
We will do all of that. Tell us first of all what you do. What you do, what butters your parsnips, what gets you out of bed in the morning, because this is more than a job to you. This is virtually a life purpose, isn't it? So tell us about you, Esther.
Yes, well, I'm a former broadcaster, so I've been in the world of radio for many years and television. I worked at the BBC for 10 years. I've interviewed all the stars and I've seen how people, what makes people good. So from Danny DeVito to Madonna, the Spice Girls, you, Neil, I'm constantly looking, what do they do? What is charisma? And when I left the BBC 10 years ago to set up my own business, I thought I would just be helping people with going, being on telly and radio. And I thought it was more kind of media coaching. But it turned out that really I knew a few people in business and in professional services firms. When I got talking to them about what I help people with, which is being able to present yourself with confidence, really. When I spoke to people in business,
people say the first thing people buy is you. When I used to sell, I mean, it's not glamorous. I used to sell drinks vending machines, which is horrible because people like their kettles. But people would say to me, the first thing people buy is you. And particularly nowadays, because there's a lot of people and they are their own brand. It's like brand you, isn't it?
Yes,
so you really do need to sell yourself. So please continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of my many masterclasses that I run in banks and in professional services firms and in conferences for entrepreneurs and people that want to be more confident in general. One of my masterclasses is called How to Maximize Your Personal Brand. And it's all the same thing. I mean, I suppose the shortcut to what I do is personal impact. Personal impact. What does that mean? That means
you are known as the impact coach, aren't you?
Yeah, the impact coach, the impact guru. What it means is just being able to speak with confidence, whether it's a job interview, on the phone with your family, an argument, public speaking, a say a few words moment, a wedding. I was at a wedding this weekend and I had to do a reading at a wedding and I got it. I got glossophobia, which is the name of my book, Goodbye Glossophobia. But I got it this weekend. I just got that fear, that fright, because it's almost ingrained in us, isn't it? You're now going to speak at a wedding and it's very formal and it
Where
goes
does this
quiet.
come from? My theory is because teaching when I was growing up certainly wasn't particularly enlightened. I'm sure we were shamed in class and therefore didn't like the sound of our own voices. So the idea of having to be on the spot is anathema to us, even in adult life. That's my theory. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I've because when I left the BBC to set up my business, I was actually afraid of speaking myself. So I've been on this long journey, this quest to find out, wow, I can get other people to be confident. For all these years, I've been so good at giving people confidence, and I knew what to do, and I knew the formula and the recipe. But when it came to me, I was really terrified, and my mind would
But
go
isn't it the
blank.
hardest person to apply our teachings to is ourselves?
Was it Doctor Heal Thyself? No, Physician Heal
Physician,
Thyself.
heal thyself.
Heal
Yes.
Thyself, yeah.
Confidence coach, be confident thyself. But you don't, I mean, I don't, and obviously it doesn't change what you might be feeling inside, but you don't seem unconfident at all. When I looked at your website earlier, you're a powerhouse. I imagine when you walk in the room, it's like the Tasmanian devil. It's like, whoa, Esther's in the room in a really good way.
It's funny. People say that. People think that. But you're not just born confident. You do have to work on confidence. And I've got to say, I have done a lot of work, and I'm not 100% confident, but I have done a lot of work on myself, and I've faced my fear, and I faced it again, and I've crashed through that comfort zone, and I've made myself practice things, and I've practiced every single tip, whether it's
because
how
ultimately
not to shake.
it is all about consistency and practice. It's a skill, albeit a mental skill, and the nature of any skill is all skills are learnable, but you do have to practice, and that's the thing. Mr. E, our producer Ken Evans says, I'm reading this out by the way for the people on Deluxe because they can't see the screen, they've got audio only. Many people suffer nerves before they do perform. As an example, James Hunt, world motor racing champion, suffered before most races, and I can understand that. And Paul says, fear of failure equals not attempting. Once you don't give a shit, because we can use naughty language here, it gives you a whole new perspective. Now, I definitely would love some questions.
That's a good. Yeah, I'd like to talk about the don't give up, the don't give a thing.
You can say shit if you want to.
Because I worked at the BBC. I kind of it's like I have I'm like a Pavlov dog. If a swear word comes up, I immediately do the 6-second delay and then beep in my head.
We are live without delay. We have no fear here.
I know we don't have to wait 6 seconds.
Tell me your take on that, because I've got a theory on that as well. There's good
about
not caring and bad not caring. You go first.
Yeah, so I totally get what you're saying. The sentiment of that is right, because what you mean by don't give a, I'll call it a monkeys if you don't mind, because I feel like I stop myself swearing. If you don't give a monkeys, I understand what that means. It means what you've stopped caring about your inhibitions, maybe. But here's the thing: I think that you do care. You do care, because we all care about our reputation, our personal brand, how we're coming across. We actually do care if people like us or hate us. We kind of, even if we say we don't, and we maybe we're thick-skinned, but we actually do care if we are coming across as professional with gravitas and credibility. You don't want to look a fool, or don't want people to snigger behind your back going, oh, what an idiot. So I think what it is, I think I had a light bulb moment, that kind of not giving a monkeys. I had a light bulb moment when I realized that when I was speaking to an audience before I'd go on, I get very nervous. And one time I was speaking at I think it was a law firm, and a couple of women came up to me before and went, oh, I can't wait to hear your tips. And did you really interview George Clooney? And they were so focused on the tips that I was about to share. And they were so like, oh, I haven't got any confidence. Oh, can you help us? Can you help us? I suddenly realized, wow, here I am standing here really nervous. And I'm so worried about my own inhibitions. And actually at that moment, I realized, do you know what's more important here? What's more important is the tips I'm going to give those women, and my inhibitions are not important in this scenario. I've got to stop thinking about myself, and I've got to focus on the audience.
It's not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less.
Yes, absolutely. And it's about, so when you say I don't give a monkeys, it's like, do you know what? I'm refusing to care about my inhibitions here. And what I'm going to focus on, and what I do care about, is the output. is the audience. I care about the audience going,
exactly.
Thank you. You've given me more confidence. And I had a bit of
Exactly.
a light bulb moment that I felt the balance of fear. I felt my fear going.
But isn't it fascinating when you focus on what you've got to deliver, when you focus on your service to other people, and you are naturally very good at it, of course, as you well know, then it just kind of.
I can't take a compliment.
Well, please do. You must take at least one
you.
while being on this show. Well, clearly you're good at what you do. You're a powerhouse. I could virtually feel your energy from here, emanating out the screen towards me. My take on it is there's not giving a. So you've made me polite now. There's not giving a monkeys in a bad way. Yeah. Can we say toss? That's like halfway
through.
Oh,
yes, because it could be tossing a coin.
Thank you. So there's not giving a you-know-what in a sort of apathetic way. And that means not even attempting in the first place, which is what Paul said. Yeah. And I agree with that. But maybe a better word is not attached so much to the outcome. If you just trust and go with the flow.
Yeah.
And then from that point of view, there is no failure. It is only feedback. And I'm doing comedy for the second time round, stand-up comedy. I did it when I was in my 20s, first of all. Now I'm in my 50s.
That's harsh. That's very harsh.
Well, comedy.
Yeah, that's like you're putting yourself.
It can be brutal,
right
but
there.
the thing is, this time round, I don't care as much. So if I don't succeed, because I'm mainly doing it for fun and because I enjoy it, it's not like I feel my whole life would collapse. It doesn't change if it didn't go well. It doesn't change me as a person. It doesn't change who I am at core. It's just that particular night didn't go particularly well with that particular audience. It's just life. You know?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter so much in terms of, and also it doesn't. You're not investing your emotional energy on people liking you.
Sense and investing your sense. Well, yeah, I agree. You're not investing your sense of emotional well-being.
Yeah, and I've definitely found
in other people. Who you are is fine at core, and as long as you know that, then what happens on the outside so much doesn't really matter so much, does it?
And I think it's actually about really focusing on just having a good time and focusing on the content and focusing on, like, how did that joke land? And like analyzing it. So you're learning, and it's like a learning experience rather than the be all and end all. And I think that's a really healthy way.
You'd be surprised how many people do treat it as the be all and end all.
Yeah, and
this
that's
fear is so deeply in us that
hard.
they think if they've got to stand up and do a public speech, they will literally regress to the schoolroom almost. It's like, I don't want to do it. My daughter got engaged, by the way. Congratulations, Ashley and Tommaso. But Tommaso has banned me virtually from doing a speech at the wedding. I'm banned from DJing it for a start, right? And I'm virtually banned from doing a speech because he's seen so many boring wedding speeches. And I said, trust me, it won't be boring much. I think scared him even more. So I'm going to be vetted, would you believe? Vetted, Esther, I tell you.
Yes, I mean, what they could do is they could give you a very strict time limit of 3 minutes, and then everyone gets the best of all worlds then. Because you can do a really good speech in 3 minutes.
I'm sure.
Offer up 3 minutes of magic, and don't put yourself under too much pressure.
I won't.
But you could do
what I
really
think's magic and
what
my daughter thinks magic are worlds apart. And this is why he's scared. A couple of comments on the screen. Asa Don Brown, who is super high up in the psychological community, always tunes into the show. I'm really good to have your presence here, Asa Don, as always.
Hello, Asa.
As a clinical psychologist, I've worked with individuals at all levels of society. I discovered that a majority of those that suffer from anxiety and fear have a poor internal dialogue. It's true. That little troll because somebody said to me the other day, see what you think about this, Esther. Someone said to me, who I'm doing a podcast with, and she said, when we were growing up, we didn't talk about the voices in our head because people would go, oh, that's schizophrenic, you're ill. No, it's not. We've all got that little nasty troll, but we've also got an inner cheerleader as well.
Yeah.
And it's just which one we turn our attention to, I've learned. But the good thing is people are now talking about it now. But what you say to yourself and how you present yourself to yourself in your own head, it makes a massive difference. Difference.
Absolutely. And I still have to remind myself to do the tips, which is don't beat yourself up. Forget that naughty. I mean, I call it the VOD, the voice of doubt. And one of my little tips is to just name it. Have a really silly name for it. So my one is I'm cynical Cyril. I can say cynical Cyril. I don't need your voice.
Name
right
it,
now.
claim it, tame it, aim it.
There you go. Love that name. It sounds a bit like a pet dog, but yes, absolutely.
It is a bit like it's like having a new puppy. It's part of you. It's part of the household, if you like.
And it's out of control.
but you wouldn't let it wreck the house. You'd love it, you'd nurture it, but you wouldn't. You keep it under a little bit of discipline, a little bit of control, just for the benefit of everyone. It's the same sort of thing, isn't it?
And actually, with this voice of doubt business, I mean, when it comes to public speaking, I mean, I've done quite a lot of interviews and research, and I've spoken to experts, like your good friend there, and so I've found out, like, why are we so afraid? I mean, the thing is, with public speaking, it's the same as any fear. It's just a fear. I mean, fear comes in the same. It's just disguised in a particular way, and it's about going back to the tribal. You know, you're outside a tribe, and then there you are on your own. All the audience are looking at you, and you're like a piece of meat you're the prey.
But that's the thing, because in days past, that would have meant certain death.
Yes, certain death, because if the tribe don't like you,
yes,
and
now
again,
now it doesn't. It's more of an emotional tribe, but it still feels as bad. It's like parts of us have evolved, but parts of us are quite primitive still.
Yeah, absolutely. So if it means certain death, your brain's like certain death. That's what gives you fight, flight, or freeze. Or freeze. Yeah. So I've frozen a few in the past. I've frozen. And my fear of public speaking first came when I was at school and I was asked to read aloud, and I just couldn't read aloud. I couldn't read at all. I was age 6. And when my teacher made me stand up, I've written this in the book, Miss Baldock, she made me stand up. And Miss I remember Baldock. Looking at the page, and I bet she was a riot. I couldn't see the words. I mean, they just disappeared in front of me. And I was, I just thought, I must be so stupid. I can't read.
And then that's what the internal voice said.
Yeah, so my internal voice told me nearly my whole life, you're a bit stupid. And I thought, and I've got exams and all this stuff, but I still, my internal thought, my internal dialogue would say, yes, but you cheated. You cheated on, you had to revise double. You had to do extra things to make yourself pass all these exams.
Which is the nature of this internal voice. In a very unenlightened way, it's trying to protect you, but it actually causes more problems than it's worth. Friday night, I had a comedy gig, and what they'd done, rather than putting us at the back of the room, because it was a long room, they put us right in front of the bar, so the audience is right here, virtually. I could almost reach out and touch them. And my inner troll, as I call it, started, they might not like you. And I just did the STFU, shut the up.
Yeah.
And then listen to the other voice that went, no, you're great. You've done a class like this before. You know you're going to do well. And I did. And it is possible to tune to that other voice.
You can.
It takes a little practice, but it is
does.
there. They're both there.
And you don't want to sound cliched, because when you can hear yourself saying, oh, I've read this, I've heard this from a psychologist. But I've got to say, when I was at the wedding and I was sitting there, it was outside with all these rows, wooden chairs. It was kind of TP style, but it was outside the wedding.
Oh, lovely.
And they sat us, and I was on my own row 2, on my own with I'd stuck the poem that I had to read to a bit of card so it didn't flutter in the breeze. So I was the most professional in terms of mine didn't flutter like anyone else. And I sat there and I thought, well, okay, so my niece has asked me to do this reading because I'm a speaker. So I've got to be professional. But rather than put myself under pressure going, I've got to be professional. Oh, this is a nightmare. Oh no, because I'm out of my comfort zone because I don't really know the people that well. It's not my writing. It's a poem that I'm reading. It belongs to somebody else, even though I had practiced it, but I'm not really good at reading aloud. It's not really my thing.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to go and ask a couple of questions to the audience before the poem, but I sat there, Neil, and I did the anti-troll chatter. So I said, yes, you're a professional. You know what you're doing. Esther, you know how to do this. The guy at the moment on the mic isn't holding the microphone properly. You know how to hold a microphone.
Yes.
You know how to slow down. You have diction when you think about it. You don't talk too fast. Just breathe out. You know what you're doing, and sure enough,
and that's a much nicer voice to listen to.
Yeah, you know what you're doing. You've got this. You know.
The thing is, the inner coach. It already knows how good it is, so it's not particularly verbose. It would be just like, you've got this. Just choose me.
Yes.
The troll is
and also my brain is, I'm semi-dyslexic. I think I've got ADHD. I think I've got all kinds of issues, and my brain goes and I like to add this and add that and overthink. But I said to myself, keep it simple. Don't go off piste. Yeah. Ask the questions. Exactly. Yes. Don't spend too long. Don't go off piste. Get to the poem and then read it. Anyway, sure enough, it's so funny. Afterwards, my brother Tommy, who's like a builder, he's not going to be, he would not give me a compliment, right? But afterwards, he was like, "Oh, it was so obvious that you were like a professional."
Which is high praise from someone like that. But
I
you've
said,
touched
"Thanks,
on something else.
Tommy.
You've touched.
I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you."
Well,
It was
exactly.
like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it was
High
so
praise.
obvious. It was so obvious that you're like so professional. You're so
Yeah.
professional." Like the way you held the microphone, it was like obvious that you do it as a job kind of thing. It was like you did it in a way that was
High
kind of
praise
like
indeed.
slightly, but like slightly like not, it was it a criticism? No, I didn't take it as a criticism. And I thought that's so funny. The fact that he just even mentioned it. He didn't say, "Oh, that was really good."
Well,
Like
no,
a few people
the
like,
fact that he felt moved to mention it is
yeah, like,
probably
"Oh, it's so obvious that you're professional."
high praise in and of itself, isn't it? And you've touched on something else, keeping it simple. It's the KISS theory, isn't it? Keep it simple, stupid.
Stupid,
That's the
yeah.
other one. Because there is a grain of truth in all these cliches. And when you said cliche, I immediately thought of, I don't know if you remember this, it was Frank Spencer. Every day in
No,
every
Frank.
way, I'm getting better and better. But literally, if you listen to that positive voice, you won't sound like Frank Spencer, but you will, because it's all practice. And like any skill,
Yeah, and I've got to say, on the back of that wedding this weekend, obviously it's still etched in my mind. I really want to share that, and I want to say, you know what? You can sit there and you can get. I was shaking, sweating, all those things. I could feel my heart rate go up, and I know how to get my heart rate down. You just breathe out. But that visualization, you've got this. You can do it. And just going through the easy question, the first question in my head, it really, really works. And then for the feedback from the most critical one of my four brothers, I knew I'd got it. I knew I was professional, and it was funny. People actually did laugh at the jokes. I mean, they laughed at my comments.
that's even better.
I knew that it was good. In a way, it's like, then I was like, am I showing off? Am I too good? Not too good, but it's like, it is obvious that I've got this. But
you don't want to hide your light under a bushel. If you've got it, flaunt it, girl.
But here's the thing, right? I having to go through it myself is really interesting, because obviously I use myself as a specimen. It sounds disgusting, doesn't it? But feeling all the emotion and feeling like, does it work? No, that really works. So when people say visualize, like, all the sports psychologists, they all say visualize, go to that place, go to the anchor, and
focus on what you want, not what you don't want.
Yeah, focus of, oh, it might be a smell, it's a trigger, it's an anchor. That's all those cliches. They really work, but it takes years. It's taken me, probably about 7 years really to get to the point where I know I've got it. I know, and also I know the signs. If when people say, "Oh, that was awful, it was a horror show," and with comedy, it's right there in front of you, and it's a horror show, but you can kind of tell the signs. You know how to remedy things when you can see it happening.
Whether run like hell off stage, generally I do.
Yeah, whether it's a bad venue, bad booking, bad microphone, bad, you can tell.
Because it could be that. I mean, no matter how good you are, there will be those other factors which we can't control.
Oh, I've tried everything.
I want to hear about your book again, and I want to hear about what you're
launching. 80% Perfect Club.
The 80% Perfect Club. Thank you. But before we do that, any questions for Esther? We've got a confidence coach, one of the best ever, live sitting in my conservatory, live on Men's Radio. She's right here. So any questions, I'll be delighted to put them up. Asa Don Brown says, as a clinical psychologist, we did that one, didn't we?
Yes. And Asa, you are absolutely right. Fear is... It's about our internal dialogue, and fear comes in lots of different guises, and this is just one of them. But I can give you some of my frequently asked questions as well. Please do ask me anything about confidence, about speaking. A lot of people ask me about...
They've been somewhat quiet this morning, so I think you've blown them away with your confident energy, it would seem.
No,
Tell us
not
about
at all.
the 80% Perfect Club. I want to know all about this. And you're just launching it, so use this as your forum. Give it a shameless plug. What's it all about?
I'm giving it a shameless plug. So the 80% Perfect Club is, I've gone digital. I'm global and I'm digital, okay? And that's the main thing about it that's so exciting, because it means that you can get a piece of me every week in your inbox. It's a little Monday mission if you join the club, and then you get a monthly masterclass. And I've got people like Melinda Messenger, who's now a psychotherapist, giving her tips. Yeah. Oh God, the masterclass is really good. If you go to 80percentperfect.com. So 80 the number %perfect.com.
I'll tell you what, I'll make a banner. I'll put it on the screen. Keep talking.
Yeah, 80. So it's 80 and then the word %perfect.com. And that's the website you can go to. So here's the thing. You go on, you join the club and you get all these little nudges once a week, and you can do it in the privacy of your own home when you want. It's a little chunk, because what I found is when I do a big masterclass, a live masterclass for an audience of 200 people, and we talk about public speaking and getting promoted and how to show up online and how to look at the camera, for that hour or whatever it is, you go, oh yes, yeah, wow. When I put my shoulders back and smile and look at the camera, I look so much better and I feel so much more confident. And that lasts for probably a few days. And then I might send you, thanks for coming to the masterclass. Remember,
and that's nice, because so you kind of bask in an afterglow of your own brain chemistry, as it were.
Yeah, but the thing is,
looking at you now, you look so radiant, you look so vibrant now. It's hard to imagine you being any other way.
Oh, Neil.
Have I got that right, by the way? Is that
will get you everywhere. 80percentperfect.com. Yes, that's perfect. So the reason why I set the club up is because people say to me, oh, I loved it. I love that masterclass. I felt so confident. Gosh, I've got this job interview, next week, and I've completely forgotten. I've forgotten to be confident. I've forgotten to stand up and put my shoulders back. I've forgotten to, what was it again? Oh yeah, 10 minutes a day on LinkedIn. Oh yeah, I ought to be posting. Oh yeah, I suppose I ought to be, thinking about my personal brand. What color was I meant to wear again? And you just forget to do it. You forget to do all of the things that are going to help you shut out the voice of doubt. You forget all the little things that are going to help you just boost that bit of confidence every day. And the thing is, these tips and these little missions that you get every week, they're just tiny little suggestions. They work. Because what I found personally, and I've done all of the experiments, is if you do something every day or every week, it just reminds you. So even if it's reminding you to be more visible in your job, like speak up early in a meeting. So one of the missions might be this week, speak up more in meetings at work. This week, make sure you get your voice heard. Maybe you could volunteer to chair a meeting this week, but put yourself a little task this week. Offer to be a guest on the radio.
Because ultimately,
I'm sure Neil's looking for guests.
You do have to do these things. You can read about it all you like and become part of the self-help movement, but you actually have to do it. And part of confidence is taking a little risk, I read, every day. And what you're talking about are manageable risks. It might feel like jumping off a cliff, but really it's just jumping off a coffee table. Esther, I'm going to bring on the other guest on in a moment.
Great.
Just give us one tip, one frequently asked question tip before I bring Liz on. So I can see
okay, one of the most.
Help yourself to bagels, Liz.
Oh, thanks. I will. Thanks. No, one of the most frequently asked questions is, what do I do with my hands when I'm speaking? Because people don't, they don't know what to do, and then they look at Angela Merkel, who does that.
Oh, does she?
They call that the rhombus of power.
Is that right?
In Germany, the rhombus of power, but it's actually called steepling. Judy James, my very good friend, body language expert, calls that steepling, which is like...
Steepling means that you're the big cheese. You got the answers.
You're the big cheese, exactly.
Yeah.
But in some countries, I'm afraid to say, that means the female parts.
Oh, right. So be careful when you do that.
So anyway, the point is people don't know what to do, and they don't know whether to put them in their pockets, behind their back. Do you put your hands there? You can't see me. So I'm going to explain. So maybe if you put your hands in front of you, you look a bit like you're defending a goal if you're a footballer. If you put your hands behind your back, picture that. You might look a bit like a policeman or a bouncer. Hands in pockets, not trustworthy. You don't know where those hands are, what they're doing. Hands by the sides, a bit droopy, a bit drippy. So if in doubt, grab your third finger. And what you'll see is that when you watch the news now, you'll see that all the presenters have their elbows slightly bent. Elbows bent. Yeah, you don't want to have them too high up. It's got to be kind of there in the middle of your body kind of thing. And you want to shake your arms out so you're not too rigid. If you're sitting down, it doesn't quite work. If you're standing up, it's really interesting to just have a nice place to park your body when you're standing up. Because when you're standing in front of an audience on a stage, if you're a stand-up comedian, you're holding a mic, so you've got a bit of business going on there, gives you something to do. But one of the main things is that embarrassed, slightly awkward moving around posture with your hands going, doing all the wrong things, giving away the wrong signals. So standing really solidly is really good, and parking your hand somewhere so you've got a parking space. Otherwise, you have a lot of what they say in America, non-verbal leakage. And that will stop the non-verbal leakage.
That's just a lovely term, isn't it? A lovely term. Esther, it's been an absolute joy talking to you.
What a joy, Neil.
You're an
Thank
absolute
you so much.
powerhouse. We'll give that website address another plug, 80percentperfect.com. If you'd like to stick around for the rest of the show, we've got an amazing guest coming on with an incredible story. And if you have to dash, that's cool as well. But thank you for being on, but do feel free to stick around.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. And welcoming Liz Cashin is in the room. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, we are marvellous. I'm going to put your name on the screen. There we go. Liz, thank you so much for being on. I know it was a bit of a last minute thing, but I saw you. I saw it on Facebook. You were on TV, so we'll hear about this in a minute. But the reason why I wanted to get you on is not only to talk about your book, not only to tell us your backstory as well, because we do need to set the context, but you are one of the, I would go as far as to use the word luminary, if you like, for people who have turned the healing corner and are now reaching back to help other people, no matter what's gone on in their life. Just to give the context, I edit a podcast called Unbroken, Healing Through Storytelling, which is a beautiful podcast from an incredible lady with an equally incredible story, who I will have on the show at some point, Madeline Black. And I edited your podcast, and I'm like, wow, what a story that is. But and you'll tell us in a moment, I'm sure, but it's the fact that you've worked your way back to mental well-being, and it can't have been an easy journey. And we need people like you. We need people that have turned this healing corner, because it gives hope to everyone, and it shows it is possible, because you're living proof of it. And it is possible to get back to mental well-being, because I think some people really don't believe it is. They think such awful things have happened to me. I'm stuck. And perhaps that's the most frightening thing of all, feeling you're stuck and you can never change and never be better. And you're here to really demonstrate to us that that is clearly not true. Yeah. Is that a fair intro?
That's a brilliant intro. One of my best ever, I think. Thank you, Neil.
I do my best, madam. I do my best. So I want to focus more on the journey and the mental health bit, but to put it in context, if you don't mind, just tell us what happened to you, if you would.
Yeah, so I'll just give a trigger warning, because what I'm about to say was a huge trauma that I went through. So if anyone's feeling vulnerable, just to maybe, if they want to tune out for a couple of minutes, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, just a couple of minutes will be enough. If you tune out until about 11:39, that should be enough time.
Yeah, exactly. So I was 13 and went to school. It was my school sports day. I was really excited because I was in with a chance of winning a medal. And at that point in my life, I really sort of craved that recognition. It came time for the javelin event. So that's what I was taking part in. I made my way over, waited my turn. There was about 5 girls in front of me. They called my name. I walked up to the runner's box, lifted the javelin, took a deep breath and took my run up and threw the javelin as hard as I could, really willing it, to go far because I wanted to win this medal. And at first it was going straight. And then at the very last moment, it just veered to the right quite sharply and headed towards my friend who was out on the field marking the throw. And for some reason, she wasn't looking. And we screamed her name and she ducked. When you think it's a near miss and you sort of go, oh, and then that turned to horror when it struck her in the head. And 4 days later, she died in a hospital from her injuries.
Now, that's the end of the triggering bit. Thank you. We did need to say that just to give the context of it. Most people, I would have thought, looking from the outside, would say something like, sweetheart, it's not your fault. It cannot be your fault. And that's obvious to everyone looking from the outside. But I bet you did not experience it that way, did you?
No, and even my friend was called Sammy, and even Sammy's parents never blamed me. I really want to stress
tragic accident.
How incredible they've been and so compassionate right from the beginning. But trauma doesn't work like that,
No.
And especially as a 13-year-old, as far as I was concerned, I could not understand these people saying to me, this wasn't your fault because I threw the javelin and my friend was dead. And to me, at that point, it was as straight cut as that. It was, how could it not be my fault? I never thought I'd ever be able to not feel that intense guilt, overwhelming guilt and responsibility that I felt back then.
But you have now, I don't know how long the process was of healing, I'm sure you'll tell us, but now I see your posts on Facebook, I sort of follow you on social media a bit, and you're so vibrant, and it would be hard to know anything like that had ever happened. So as I say, you're testament to the power of healing, and it is possible. Talk us through some of the things that you did that really helped you to heal. This is the really important stuff, if you would.
Yeah, and it's been a journey, and an ongoing journey. Yeah, of course. I think I want to be realistic about that, because I think some people say, oh, I did this and then I was just, everything was rosy. And, I think with trauma, it's unpredictable, and, it sometimes it catches me by surprise, but, it's just another level of healing, and, I'm very willing to do that as I continue. But I did a lot of personal development stuff over the years before we understood trauma. And actually, some of that was really great. And some of it, I think, looking back, was very dangerous for me to do that with the level of trauma that was in my
What kind of personal development would you not recommend someone with trauma does?
Yeah, I think these sort of long residential programs, where you're really going deep into things, and perhaps it's not held by trauma
like EST,
experts.
that kind of thing.
EFT is fine, I think. But
not EFT,
something...
EST. Earn a word hard. It's what you say. It's residential, and they really they go in hard, shall we say?
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Anything that goes in hard with trauma is not good, because your whole system feels unsafe, and then to force it into something actually is re-traumatizing in many ways, and can make things worse. And I think sometimes I came away from things, really in a mess, and then beating myself up because I thought it was me. Why can't I just...
You're useless at this, said the internal voice. You can't do anything, said the troll.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I just another way to beat myself up, which I used most things for many years to beat myself up. And in fact, the beliefs that I created when I was a 13-year-old, when it happened, were that I must be evil, and I deserve to be punished. And I then played those beliefs out for decades. So I found
it is
so
said
many
that
ways.
we make our beliefs, then our beliefs make us. And this is the tragic thing about it, because of course, as we all know now, it wasn't your fault. But if you believe something to be true, we will look for things to affirm that in the world and create situations to support our beliefs. But we don't realize we're doing it, if you see what I mean.
Absolutely. So I have no idea as a 13-year-old that's what I'd done.
How could you have? You couldn't have.
Yeah, and there was no mental health support. My GP at the time said to my mum, it didn't even need to go on my record. It wasn't that serious.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah. I got referred to the GP, and a different GP, when I was 14. And he said, why are you here? And I said, my mum thinks I'm depressed. And he said, depression, my dear, is a serious clinical condition. I don't think you're depressed, and sent me on my way without asking me anything about the accident. So, thank goodness things have changed. And, that's why I'm so passionate about being a voice for change, because...
Yeah, and we understand trauma a lot better now, don't we?
We do, absolutely. And, so you asked me really about the turnaround, and the biggest turnaround came when I started to share my story. I joined the Professional Speaking Association. I started to share my story, but every time I was speaking and sharing it, I was becoming re-traumatized. And I thought, this can't be right. In me wanting to help other people, it shouldn't be so painful for me. This doesn't feel right. And at that time, someone gave me the book to read, The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk.
Oh, yes. I'm thinking the Gabor Mate, but yes, that's right. Yeah.
Gabor Mate, I'm a big fan of his as well. But
he's the guru of all this, isn't he?
He's the guru, yeah. So The Body Keeps the Score. I read the first chapter about a soldier with PTSD, and I started crying because here was everything I'd been going through for decades and not having a name for it or
And
understanding
finally,
what it was.
someone understood. And I
That was
reckon
it.
that those tears were probably the start of the turnaround. Am I right?
Absolutely, yeah. And that was about 6 years ago, so quite fresh, really. And I took myself to the GP and asked him, could I have an assessment for PTSD? And he apologised on behalf of the medical profession. He said he was so sorry that nobody had thought to send me for an assessment before. And actually, I was very moved by that, because even though it wasn't his responsibility, I felt like, you know, that meant a lot, to get that recognition. And then I had the
And being
assessment.
validated would be healing in and of itself, of course.
That's it. That was it. But really feeling seen, isn't it? Seen and heard, and and validated.
So this was the beginning of it. And what things did you do after that as you improved and improved? Just before you answer that, I'm going to pop a comment on the screen. I have to read them out because we're on deluxe radio and they're audio only. Asa Don Brown, Liz Cashin, my background is trauma work. Asa, by the way, is very high up in the psychological community in the USA. And you're absolutely correct that many therapists deepen the impact of the trauma rather than creating a path of healing. I saw that once. My friend, his marriage broke down and he went to a counsellor and he sat there and talked about it and he came out worse than when he went in. And I remember thinking, something's wrong here. I couldn't put my finger on exactly what, or better stated, I didn't know any better alternatives, but it wasn't right. There was something off. Well, clearly, because he felt worse, you know.
Exactly.
Anyway, so what did you do after this initial catharsis to get you close to where you are now?
I was referred for trauma CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, so trauma specific. And I had an amazing, compassionate therapist who really supported me. And I had to relive the day of the accident, which was incredibly painful, as I had to relive it as a 13-year-old. But in doing so, what I got to really understand was, you know, I was just an innocent child going to school. I
finally
trusted.
You could understand for yourself what everyone else who cared about you could see but couldn't communicate, perhaps.
That was it.
But you have to know it for yourself.
I had to know it for myself, exactly. And you know, actually, for the first time, I've realised I had a right to be safe at school that day. Of course, I'd always thought Sammy had a right to be safe, but it had never really occurred to me that I also had a right to be safe. I trusted those adults at school to keep me safe and to protect me, and they let me down hugely. Let us both down. Let us all down. You know, there's many people impacted by what
if there
happened.
is blame, it didn't belong on your shoulders, for sure.
Yeah, and I got angry initially, but then there was nobody I could get angry towards, you know, none of them were there anymore, and it was decades later. But I think the anger was good. It's a good first step in healing. But then I thought, you know, if I hang on to this anger, which some people do, and I understand that some people do, and I understand why they do it, but for me, I just didn't want to hurt myself anymore. And actually, in those sessions, at one point, I looked at the therapist and said, it was like a revelation. I said, I really didn't do anything deliberately wrong. You know, I think I'd been terrified I was going to find this evil monster lurking inside of me.
Terrified to see what was there, and it turned out to be a wonderful person and not the evil monster you thought. I'm getting goosebumps even hearing this. Oh goodness.
Yeah, that was it. And she said, you really didn't do anything wrong. And I thought, no. Oh my gosh. But you know what was almost the most painful thing, Neil, was realizing how much I'd hurt myself over decades. You know, I had found so many different ways, subtly and not so subtly, to abuse and punish myself. You know, I'd never allowed myself to be in a loving relationship. I took a lot of drugs in my 20s that was really spiraling out of control. You know, I wouldn't allow myself to have work success. There was all sorts of different ways that.
But now,
I've been punishing
is it safe
myself.
to say that you love yourself now? Is it safe to say?
It is safe to say, yeah. And I love all parts of me, especially those that were traumatized.
Now, this is a key. You've touched on something here, because when people hear self-love, a lot of people go, well, I like the bits of myself that I like, but the other ones I'll just pretend aren't there, which and I think Jung cottoned onto this. First of all, you have to embrace the shadow side. You've got to embrace all of you. You can't become a whole being unless you embrace all of you. But the beautiful thing is, when you do embrace these so-called bad parts, and that's not the right word, disowned maybe, it does turn out that they're not bad at all. They're just kind of disowned, and it just reintegrates you. And that's when we find the gold within ourselves. I think Debbie Ford wrote the book, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. You familiar with that?
Great book. Yeah.
Bit of a spiritual classic, that one. Yeah, but it's true. You have to embrace all of yourself. So, you know.
And that's it. I think so many of us, I mean, my story is, quite unique. Unfortunately, there are other people have similar, but we've all been through stuff, haven't we? And, to forgive ourselves. But what happens is, I think it's because we need to be accepted and to belong in order to survive. And so we feel we've got to reject these parts of us that we don't feel are perfect. And we turn away from them. I just split off that part of me, tried to split off from it. Of course, you never can do that.
Doesn't work,
and then
does
it bubbles up, at the
most inappropriate time normally.
Exactly. Or by something very small, suddenly someone will explode and then think, oh gosh, what was that about? Because they're sitting on
I've seen people have massive reaction, and I didn't understand it at first, but then I realized it's just triggering old stuff.
Exactly.
On a surface level, it's like, why would you explode over, I don't know, dropping an egg or something like that? But when it takes them back to when they were screamed at for dropping an egg, blah, 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 all that sort of thing, and it all comes up. Well, I mean, clearly it's a process. And what do you do now to maintain your self-love, apart from being an incredible advocate for mental health and appearing on podcasts and shows like this?
Well, I've done a lot of EMDR, so the eye movement, desensitization, reprocessing. I've had many sessions around that really helps to sort of reprogram the trauma to become a memory rather than a trauma,
because it can be reprogrammed. This is what we understand now with treatments like that, and with havening, I believe, as well. I heard an amazing story about havening, and it takes its name literally from safe haven, and it's really just stroking the sides of your arms, which creates delta waves in the brain. And how we experience that then is we can think of a memory, but it wouldn't have any more emotional charge than I had beans on toast for breakfast this morning. So you can think the thought, but it doesn't have that emotional charge anymore. And Paul McKenna healed a guy on stage who had seen hideous things on the battlefield, PTSD, capital T trauma, as was yours, of course. Because there's small t trauma as well. It doesn't all have to be terrible things. But he healed this guy within an hour, and it can be so fast nowadays. So I'm just so grateful that these new things like EMDR, havening, emotional freedom technique, all that, tapping and all that sort of thing, it's all available to us now. And people like you are wonderful signposts to it.
I would say as well, just because I think otherwise people can use this as another way to beat themselves up, that when you've got had trauma in your system for a long time, or if it's complex trauma, that just one session won't do it. So, I've had many sessions just so that people are aware of that, because I used to hear things like that and then beat myself up because one session I wasn't better, and I think
I'm glad you said that. Yes, I mean, I'm highlighting possibly an exceptional case, but the healing is possible. If it wasn't before, it is possible now, and I'd like to give people that hope. Tell us about your book.
Oh, yes. So it's called This Is Me, My Journey to Mental Wellbeing.
If you've got one, hold it up on screen. We want to see it.
I have got one here.
Of course. I'd be disappointed if you hadn't.
See the lovely photos of me?
I do. That is you.
That is me. So I really wanted to do was share everything I've learned in a book, really. So I start from my childhood and obviously talk about the accident, but then talk about all the different things that I've tried, what worked well, what didn't work well, but really to show that journey, the ongoing journey, and how.
If people want to recap on what they've heard here, buy your book, and the whole journey is there, because it's almost like you've gone ahead and left a trail, so people don't have to make the mistakes that you did, the natural mistakes that anyone makes on a learning curve. We've got another comment from Asa, which I'm going to put on the screen. Oh, he likes you, as we all do. Liz, thank you for sharing your story. It's such an important message, and this man knows of what he speaks. He's very high up in in the psych
Thank
world.
you. I will just say that the profits from this go to the Young Minds mental health charity. So it's just my way
You are just
to give
too
back.
much awesome. I can't take any more awesomeness this morning, Liz. Stop it.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
Hang on, but you were on TV as well.
I was.
We need to hear about this, Liz. Come on, still.
I was on Steph's Packed Lunch last week up in Leeds, and I've been telling everyone it was a terrifyingly brilliant experience. It was my first live TV, but what a nurturing space they held. You know, they were very empathetic, and we were looking at the self-forgiveness aspect of my story, because that is so needed by so many of us. You know, as I said, I blamed myself,
we can't really
judged myself.
forgive anyone else until we forgive ourselves, can we?
No.
And to be clear on forgiveness, I always say this because there's a misnomer with forgiveness. Some people think it means people can treat me like crap and I just have to kind of put up with it and turn the other cheek, not do very much, you know, and all that sort of thing, and just be treated like rubbish, and it's okay for them to treat me that way. Doesn't mean that at all. It means letting go of the pain that you hold associated with it. In other words, stop empowering that event and stop empowering them. It's letting go of holding other people responsible for the pain that you feel, and it puts the ball firmly back in your court. That is a healthy, enlightened self-interest is the best definition I ever heard of forgiveness. Enlightened self-interest.
That is the best definition. The way you explained that, Neil, was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's about taking your own power back.
Well, and clearly both of you, I mean, Esther and you're clearly women in your own power, and it's lovely to see. This is what being human's supposed to be like. This is what we're supposed to be like, you know, and the fact that we can be unbroken, as Madeline Black says in her podcast, and share our stories and heal through storytelling, quoting a lot of Madeline today, and leave these trails for other people to follow. It's invaluable. You know, you're leading lights, both of you. It's been an absolute privilege and pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you were saying it's a nurturing space. Media has two sides to it. Media can be lovely and nurturing, as we hope this aspect it is. You know, safe space, non-judgmental, or it can be awful.
I had awful 3 years ago. I had my story was in The Guardian, and they were very sensitive, but all the online media just grabbed my story. We're in my social media profiles, posting videos, posting photos, rehashing it, re-traumatized. It was horrific.
Yeah, I remember the story. When you started telling the story, I thought, oh my goodness, I've heard this. I know this. I've seen a picture. I've definitely read about it. I definitely was. And so, yeah, about 3 years ago.
I'd like to see more responsibility in the media world, because re-traumatizing people is, you know, for the sake of a story. I'm sorry, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. And I would like to see more media outlets like this, where you can meet wonderful people and share your story and go on cooking TV shows as well.
It's incredible, though. Liz.
Did you do any cooking? I didn't see it. Did you do any cooking?
No, but I met John Waite, the celebrity chef, who was also on Strictly Come Dancing last year. He's absolutely gorgeous.
You're hobnobbing with the stars now. You didn't expect this, did you?
I didn't. I got a selfie and everything.
Well, I met Chris Packham the other day, if we're dropping names. And I met Joe Thomas, who was Simon in the In-Betweeners. I met him the other day as well.
Oh, brilliant.
Stand-up comedy now. So, yeah, I'm going to drop some names.
Yeah.
As well.
Great.
Why not?
Great. Why
we
not?
Need to
exactly.
Sweep them up afterwards, won't we? All those names that are dropped. I want to thank you both for being on. I'm just going to pop Esther's website back on the screen again. The 80percentperfect.com.
Thank you very much. I'm just doing a quick screenshot, so smiling at the camera.
and sign up for that. There we go. EstherStanhope.com, the Impact Guru, and the wonderful Liz Cashin, and she can be found at Liz with an S, Cashin .com. Keep in touch with us, both of you. Keep in touch with us, both of you. Keep in touch. Thanks for being on Men's Radio Station. And 50% of the audience are women, by the way, interestingly. So
we're the loyal ones.
What's that?
We're the loyal listeners. Women are the loyal listeners.
I would not be without you, ladies. Get away with that. Yes. I think
Thank you so much, Neil.
Bless you both for being on, and keep in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Well, that was a pretty cool show. And we didn't get Mr. E to come and do his tip. But I'm going to get him to come and say hello. Come on, over here. This is my producer, Mr. E. I made you a banner, man. So you can't. There you go, Mr. E, my producer. Because mental health is also about money and money saving. So we're going to get Ken here to do some top money saving tips. This man is a genius. Anything computer based, reach out to him because he's a genius. This probably wouldn't be set up were it not for him. But right now, from Mr. E, my producer, not very verbose today, but that's okay. I'll be back with Russ on Wednesday. Really hope you enjoyed the show today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, no matter what you've been through, we have people on today who are living proof that it is possible to heal. It is possible to be better. And it is possible to be, I think, how human beings are supposed to be, which is joyful and mentally healthy. And on that thought, I shall say, love you, hug you, squeeze you, and I'll catch you on Wednesday. Good afternoon.